we have some mutual friends that are very into taking supplements and finding the magic bullet. And some of my friends say, oh, you got to take turmeric. You got to take creatine has been found to be really good. Eating collagen somehow helps it. All right. So I can already tell from your sigh.
Yeah.
What's the real, as a cardiologist, as someone who literally saves people from dying every day, what's the real skinny? What supplements should I be taking and why? And let's dive into this. So supplement, what's a good word for it?
Expensive urine, I call it.
Okay.
Why don't we call this segment expensive urine?
Okay, that sounds good. Let's, why don't you elaborate on that?
If there was a cash register inside your toilet, it would be going, man, you're making me rich with this expensive urine. So what's the skinny on this? Lifestyle, plant-based diet, physical activity, proper sleep, decreased stress.
Yeah, we've talked about all that stuff, but tell me about the supplements. Like which supplements, let's start off with which supplements are good and why, and which ones are BS and why, and which ones we just don't have the data on. I think that's a nice way to break this up for the audience.
Okay.
So which are the ones you recommend?
None.
None?
None. Yeah, it's none. So let's start with a couple of simple facts.
I mean, I'm low in B12, so you have me take...
I get it, but that's because you have a problem. You have pernicious anemia. You don't make the receptor, the intrinsic factor in the wall of your stomach that binds the B12 to absorb it.
Okay.
It's a genetic issue, right? Now, I get it. Some people who had cancer in the stomach, some people who had a gastrectomy because they had surgery, like weight loss surgery. They had gastric bypass. They had partial resection from a gastric sleeve. In other words, bariatric surgery. Okay, so when they consume in their normal diet, in their good diet, the B12, it doesn't attach to the intrinsic factor inside the wall in the stomach, and therefore they don't absorb it because those have to be united.
Okay.
Or they don't have enough surface to activate iron from ferrous to ferric, which is how it gets absorbed.
Okay.
So they're not absorbing enough of it. Okay. So there are people who have genuine deficiency. So if you ask me, do people who have genuine deficiencies of one or more vitamins benefit from taking that specific vitamin? The answer is yes.
Okay.
But that's not who we're talking about here.
Sure.
Okay?
We're talking about the people that are trying to get ahead of the curve.
Right. That they say they live longer, that they feel stronger, they sleep better, they have more energy, they have more libido, they have more endurance, they have better cognitive function. Right? 90+% of the claims being made by people selling such supplements, vitamins, micronutrients, are without basis, without actual research data.
Is this just a question of they haven't done the clinical trials yet, so that you are open to the information changing if once the data comes in?
Yes, absolutely. It's a scientific method. You ask the question, right?
Right.
And you investigate it. But it's very difficult to come up with a model that doesn't have confounders, where you can actually determine that it's the absence of magnesium in your diet, or the absence of vitamins B1 or B2 in your diet, right? Or the absence of B6, or the absence of vitamin C, or vitamin E,
right?
Or the fat-soluble vitamins like D, E, K, and A, right? So there are specific disease entities that have those deficiencies, like, for example, celiac disease, okay, where you are missing folate, for example, or people on specific medications to treat an underlying issue, like, for example, some people for rheumatoid arthritis are still being treated with methotrexate, and we know that inhibits the metabolism of folate. So you have to take that supplement, folic acid, on a daily basis. Sometimes
So
metformin,
not just the pill, but also a supplement to counteract side effects, basically.
well, or the lack of production or activation of tetrahydrofolate, which is the active form of the folic acid, because the methotrexate inhibits a step in that. So
Okay.
you got to take folic acid, apart from obviously getting it in your diet from legumes and other vegetables. You have to supplement because otherwise you don't have enough of it. And it's an important cofactor in multiple enzymatic reactions in the body.
Okay.
So again, that's not who I'm talking about. I'm not talking about specific people, like a pregnant woman that takes a prenatal vitamin because now she has more needs for the fetus, specifically iron, for example.
Right.
Or you take folic acid again to prevent neural tube defects. That has been shown to be, correlated with the absence of folate. Okay.
Okay.
So there are specific people, and the ones I'm talking about are the ones that you kind of mentioned already that are just trying to get ahead of the curve.
Sure.
So what do we cardiologists can hang our hat on and
have the data for.
have data, okay? So here it is. The meta-analysis has been done on which supplements actually help people live longer, prevent cancer, prevent strokes, prevent heart attacks, prevent renal failure, prevent dementia, and it's a very short list.
Hit me.
None. Did I say none?
Yeah.
Okay, none. Right. So in certain countries, for example, like in China, where there are certain vitamins that are not put into their food, like, cereals here, they add B1, B2.
Or iodine.
They add, or iodine or whatever. Then those people do experience deficiencies. And in those countries, the supplementing, folic acid, supplementing B12 makes sense because they're not getting it in their day-to-day diet.
Right.
Right? So those have been shown to be of help in specific populations of people who have dietary deficiencies. Okay?
That makes sense.
But if you ask me, which antioxidant has decreased strokes, heart attacks, congestive heart failure, arrhythmias, sudden cardiac death, the need for cardiac stents, bypass surgery, the development of other complications, including aneurysms, peripheral arterial disease? None.
So what vitamins do you take?
None.
Wow.
Yeah. There were some studies that the more vitamin E that you take, the quicker you die.
Wow. So what about like vitamin C when you're sick?
Useless. Ask Linus Pauling, who won a Nobel Prize and was taking an excessive amount of vitamin C throughout his life. And I think he died of cardiovascular disease, heart attack,
Right.
strokes. He had atherosclerosis. He had pre-existing conditions that predisposed him to that. Vitamin C did not prevent anything. Some people still hold on to the myth that maybe it shortens the duration of a viral flu-like illness or a common cold. Maybe. Data is very weak because it's very difficult to perform such experiments.
So it sounds like it's a placebo effect is the only effect.
Yes, there's a good placebo effect. That is a good point that you make. But
the placebo effect is real.
Yes, it is. For sure.
Yeah.
No question about it.
So,
Okay.
but you could just as easily give them fiber pills and it would have the same effect.
Yes.
Got it.
But we have a paucity of data on...
Oh, paucity. Good word. I like that.
Yes, of data.
Somebody had a Canadian education.
So I suppose. I think I got that from my private Mexican school. Yes. They were kind of surprised when I, as a 12-year-old, went from Mexico to Canada.
How good your vocabulary was?
No, well, I didn't speak English.
Oh.
So, no. The fact I had to repeat grade 6 because I had finished grade 6 in Mexico.
Right.
Right? At private school.
I had a similar thing when I moved to Greece when I was 8. I had to do, started me in 2nd grade, then 3rd grade, and then finally 4th grade. But I moved through them within the school year as my Greek got better.
Correct. But that's the opposite of the example I'm giving. You're going from a country with a perceived higher level of education, perceived, which would have been the U.S.,
No,
to
no.
a country with less.
No.
So you were elevated because you were that much more intelligent and capable of those kids, or because you had received great education in the U.S.?
I was supposed to be in 4th grade, but
Oh,
they started me in 2nd.
Oh, because of the language.
It's exactly what happened with
Yeah.
you. It was because
So
of the
yeah,
language.
I at the end of that first semester, I was in that first semester in class, I was put in the dummies group for reading. So there were only 2 of us in that select group. First, I didn't know English, so
Sure.
that's where they put me, and the other guy was the only black student in the school. So Tom and I were there, and by December I had learned English, so it took me about 3 months, and they bumped me up to grade 7. And at the end of grade 5 months later, I was a top student in grade 7. That was Runnymede Public School in Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
So anyway, back to the
Because of more math. It wasn't because of supplements.
right.
It was because I had better STEM classes already in Mexico.
Got it.
In a private school. So I was way ahead on science and on, biology,
Sure.
stuff you study in middle school. And as soon as my English came up to par,
Then you were able to excel.
I could use the word paucity among others.
Right. So
Right,
the paucity of
successfully.
data.
It exists in the nutrition world. Okay? So all of you who are getting bombarded with Facebook and Instagram and other social media platform ads on miracle elixirs or pills or supplements that are going to do this or that for you, it's probably false information.
What about the we know that coffee gives you some cognitive boost as well as
Yes.
athletic boost. What about the mushroom sort of nootropic supplements? We just don't have the data. Is that your point? We just don't have the data.
We don't have the data. We, and again, the psychedelic medical.
Well,
world.
I'm not talking about psychedelics. I'm talking about nootropics. The ones that are supposed to help brain function.
Yes, people make those claims. Hard to, beyond mice models and rodent models, it's hard to control an experiment in humans for years.
What about when you test on yourself and you see how it makes you feel?
It's subjective.
Right.
It's the story of one. That cannot enter into mainstream medical policymaking or as a recommendation as a standard of care,
Right.
right? If it
Because
makes
it could
you
just
feel
be
well, great.
it could just be placebo again.
Correct.
Right.
So single nutrient approach to nutrition, single mineral, microelement, it's fraught with false hope. That's not the way it works. We are a species that has evolved predominantly with plant-based diets, animal products as well.
Right.
Protein sources, meaning animals as well.
I mean, my ancestors, it's all goat milk, honey, and olives.
Yes. Natural, roots and grains and insects. And then, of course, lots of fruits and plant-based diets. It's
Sure.
the way we have evolved over the last, since we've been, Homo erectus and walked out of Africa. We've evolved,
Or
to
out
do
of
that.
Greece, depending.
And depending on the latest theories, right?
Right.
Out of Greece. So that is my recommendation. So we really have not had the perfect models to study which supplements. And I know we're going to get some pushback. And if you guys, whoever's out there, has a different opinion, please, we welcome it.
Yeah, please
Show
come
me
on the
studies.
podcast. Yeah, please come on the podcast.
Show
and
me the
us
studies that
yeah.
decrease strokes, heart attacks, congestive heart failure, or a variety of different cancers. I mean, if you tell me, oh, well, my wife takes magnesium every day and she has less brain fog, great. But that is not
Yeah, that's another one that
a study.
That's another friend of ours was like, oh yeah, magnesium, it helps me sleep.
Right.
But we don't know if it's the placebo effect or what, right? Is that
Correct.
is that the issue?
Yeah. And this is someone with great nutrition already.
Yes.
Who does not have a magnesium deficiency.
Yes.
So they're not on a diuretic.
You know who I'm talking
depleting.
about, I can tell.
Of course. So there are other medical diseases that are treated with medications that cause depletion of certain vitamins and elements that we need to put back into our diet. So if people are being treated with chemotherapy, for example, so those people are going to have certain deficiencies, so they need to be given those back.
Right, that's a different scenario.
Yeah. Some diabetics who are on metformin do not absorb B12, so we see that they need a little more B12.
Yeah, you have me on B12. You already said because I have a deficiency, a genetic deficiency.
Yes.
And you have me on vitamin D as well.
Yes.
But that's...
You don't get enough of it in your diet because you do not consume the dairy products that are enriched with it, and you don't get enough sunshine. And so you have...
Today there is no sun.
Lower blood levels of vitamin D.
Got it.
So that's another...
But somebody who's outside being a lifeguard all day doesn't need it.
Right. So we know, for example, menopausal, postmenopausal women benefit from calcium, vitamin D, on occasion from B12 if they're not having the optimal diet, because most of the B12 comes from animal sources. Those with extreme diets that are just strict vegans may require also supplementation with certain vitamins they're not getting in their diet. Okay? But outside of that, we've touched on women who are pregnant already. People on HIV medications, those may require supplementation with a couple of vitamins, because otherwise they're not absorbing them. They don't have enough in their bloodstream. So, but those are specific disease entities,
right,
and or extreme diets,
right.
Famously, I think Steve Jobs was he
became a fruitarian.
Fruitarian
after he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer.
Yeah, and I think that
did not save him.
Detrimental to him, honestly.
Right.
Yeah, but again, I would not advise that. To limit yourself to one food source only, like that, or one group.
Right.
Such as just fruits. So, again, I'm sorry I don't have any more wisdom out there, and to tell you that for most of you who are on a lot of supplements on a daily basis, you probably have expensive urine.
Right. It just gets peed out.
Yeah. Now, there are some exceptions. For example, omega-3 fatty acids that may help, but we don't know exactly if the ones that are sold at the pharmacies without a prescription are doing the same or give you the same benefit as those that have been studied in the cardiovascular literature.
Right.
Yeah. That have some data, not great data, weak data.
Sure.
To be certain. But there is some data that using omega-3 fish oil capsules help.
Do you think it would be useful? Well, I saw recently that they said that, but now other studies have said actually it doesn't.
It doesn't really do it. Yeah.
So
it's a mixed bag, and there's no consensus on it. As in a lot of things in science, when people say there's consensus on this, bullshit.
Right.
It's not. Like on many other aspects that have to do with science, it's about inquiry, curiosity, inquiry, formulating a hypothesis, then presenting a research protocol that controls for bias, okay, that keeps away confounders that may also explain the phenomenon, and then testing it over time. Very difficult to do nutrition research.
Do you think that this is something that if you were ever governor, I know you always threaten to run for governor when Abbott leaves.
How many Mexicans are there in Texas now?
I know. No.
Okay, more than 12, maybe 15 million.
This is a topic for a different night.
Yeah.
But if you did become governor, is this something that you would put forth is to try to get this data out there? Because, as you say, it's very hard to do the studies. But if we had I would think that if the government set up a study with control groups and all the proper scientific method, that we could get to the bottom of some of this data, because we both have friends that swear by their supplements and mock me for not taking all this stuff. Right. Meanwhile, my cardiologist says, actually, all you need is B12 and vitamin D, and that's because of you specifically.
You have deficiencies.
All the other stuff
on your blood work.
All the other stuff is useless.
Exactly. So if you can prove an actual deficiency by measuring in your blood.
Right.
And you have some symptoms suggestive also of
Right.
those deficiencies.
Right.
Right. You had neuropathy. You had other issues in your health. Let's not go too much into it at the time. That could be attributed to a B12 deficiency.
Right.
For example. Right. So, and you had it. You was extremely low.
Sure.
Okay. So,
And over multiple tests, too.
Yes.
It wasn't like an outlier test.
right. And then antibodies that attack that intrinsic factor, that nullify it, so you're not absorbing it in your diet.
Even though I was eating plenty.
Yeah. So you can inject it or more sublingual administration of
Yeah,
the
that's what I
same.
have. I have the under tongue. Yeah.
Exactly. So, anyways, yes, I think educational nutrition, I would be a proponent of galvanizing a whole workforce of people who are in the know about nutrition, especially about plant-based diets, to promote that, as I said, from early on in the kindergarten years, elementary school years, help people understand the 80-20 rule of following good nutrition, et cetera. Yeah, I would do it.
Anything else you want to add to this topic? It sounds like there's not much to add, just that we need better data and people are getting...
There are many people who are also getting bombarded with nutrients or nutrient blockers, like the lectin blockers, and companies are making a lot of money of selling you this theory or this hypothesis that does not have any hard evidence in the mainstream medical literature about the use of lectin blockers. And there are celebrities who swear by this. And again, it's not proven to be a fact in the scientific literature.
Right.
Right? And I don't want to say names.
Yes, you do.
Eat correctly, eat plants. You're going to do well. Don't worry about lectin blockers.
Now, you get yourself tested fairly often.
Yes.
And you, as you said, take 0 supplements.
0.
What deficiencies do you have in your blood work?
Vitamin D is my weak point and is borderline.
Because you don't go outside enough because of how hard you work.
I no longer get enough sunshine. And I have lactose intolerance, so I develop bloating, diarrhea, and tremendous colic.
So you don't have the vitamin D enriched milks and stuff.
Right. And the best cheese for me is goat cheese because the other ones with dairy give me symptoms. And so...
It's almost like you're partially Greek.
Yeah, I should take some vitamin D on a regular basis.
Okay.
D3, 2,000 units, international units per day would be the one I would recommend for those who have a vitamin D deficiency. It does play a role in your immune system and preventing allergies, bone mineral health. So it has, a direct positive impact. And there's new research about other positives of vitamin D.
So like in the wintertime, most people should take vitamin D because there's just not as much sun. Is that fair?
That's fair, especially if they're not consuming dairy products that have it in it.
Okay, in conclusion, it's not none. In the wintertime,
Yes.
if you don't get it sun and if you don't drink milk, vitamin D can be useful. And if you have deficiencies, vitamins can be useful.
Yes.
But otherwise, let me just try to summarize. Otherwise, you're just making expensive pee.
Yes. So touche, you made a good point. If you have the blood work that shows that any one or more of these vitamins are low, then you should look at your diet to see if you can optimize it first.
Got it.
And then if you cannot, because you have malabsorption syndromes or you're on one of those medications I mentioned earlier.
Or allergies.
Yes.
Or intolerances like you have.
Correct. Then you could look at supplementing and then get a follow-up to make sure you're at the correct level. So yes, there's an exception, but overall, I want to say it's more than $100 billion a year
Scam, sounds
industry, most of which is giving people false hope, and it should never supplant the plant-based diet, Mediterranean concept that we've discussed many a time.
So it sounds like the most important thing for people to know, besides Follow the Leverage podcast so you can be informed, is that people need to get their blood work regularly. How often do you recommend people get it? 3 times a year?
Depends on who you are. If you're a type 2 diabetic, every 3 months to get that hemoglobin A1C, your lipids, your renal, liver function. and others until you get well controlled, and twice a year. If you are a young individual without diabetes, hypertension, cholesterol issues, then once a year is probably more than enough.
And then you can find out if you have deficiencies and if you need these vitamins. Got it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Fred. This has been very illuminating. The answers are not what I expected.
Right.
Once again, you show us that there is no black or white answer to these things. It always takes nuance, and that's why we appreciate you so much. Everybody, thanks for joining. This has been the Leverage Podcast. I'm your host, Davio Venturis. We've been joined, as always, by the eminent cardiologist, Dr. Federico Maese. As you know, most of you know him as Dr. Suave. Please like and subscribe us here on YouTube. You can also follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. We look forward to seeing you guys again soon.